What is the speed limit in a school zone, unless otherwise posted?
What does a red octagon-shaped sign mean? What should you do at a yellow traffic light? A triangular sign with a red border and white center means when are you allowed to turn right on red in J? What does it mean when the road is marked with solid and broken lines? Hand and arm bent upward means what is the minimum following distance you should keep under normal conditions? When must headlights be used in NJ? What is the minimum following distance you should keep under normal conditions? What is the fine for violating the move over law in NJ? What does a flashing red light mean? What is hydroplaning? When should you use your high beams? What does a solid yellow line on your side mean? If your brakes fail, the first thing you should try is what does a diamond-shaped sign indicate? What should you do if you miss your exit on the highway? What is the hand signal for a left turn? If two vehicles arrive at a four-way stop at the same time, who goes first? What happens if you refuse to take a breath test in New Jersey? First offense. If your car starts to skid, what should you do? What should you do if your tire blows out while driving? What does a circular yellow sign with an X and two R's indicate? How far in advance must you signal before turning? What is the penalty for driving with a suspended license due to DUI? What's the best way to communicate with other drivers? What does a pentagon-shaped sign indicate? What does a broken white line on the road indicate? If you are under 21, what is the legal back limit? When approaching an uncontrolled intersection, what should you do? A motorist should always yield to. What does a double solid yellow line mean? What should you do when approaching a stopped school bus with flashing red lights on a two-lane road? What must you do when entering a highway from an entrance ramp? When parking downhill with a curb, which way should your wheels face? What is the purpose of checking your blind spots before changing lanes? You may not park within how many feet of a fire hydrant?
When must you use your turn signals? What should you do when an emergency vehicle with flashing lights approaches? If you're approaching an intersection with a green light and a pedestrian is already crossing within the crosswalk, what should you do? What is the safest action if you need to make a phone call while driving? What is the purpose of a no zone around a truck? What should you do if your vehicle starts to drift off the pavement onto the shoulder? What does a flashing yellow traffic light indicate? What is the proper way to take a curve while driving? When driving at night, you should dim your high beams when our road surface is most slippery during rain. If your wheels slip off the edge of the road, what should you do first? What is the correct response if your vehicle begins to hydroplane? What does a blue road sign usually indicate? If your vehicle stalls on railroad tracks and a train is coming, what should you do? What is the best way to enter a curve in a standard vehicle? How far must you stop from a railroad crossing when warning signals are flashing? What is a common mistake new drivers make at intersections? What does a green arrow at a traffic light mean? On wet roads, how much longer can it take to stop? What is the meaning of a yellow X over a lane on a highway? What is the penalty for failing to yield to a pedestrian in a crosswalk in NJ? What is the proper response when approaching a stopped emergency vehicle on the shoulder? What should you do at an intersection if the traffic signal is not functioning? What type of insurance is required by law in New Jersey? AGD, bottle, permit holder may not use which of the following while driving? When preparing to enter a curve, what is the safest approach? What does New Jersey's implied consent law relate to? At a back of 0, 10, how much more likely are you to be involved in a crash? What does a solid white line on the right edge of the highway indicate? What is the penalty for obtaining a license illegally? When driving down a long hill, what is the safest action to control speed? What is the total stopping distance at 60 mph on dry pavement? Which factor most affects your back level? If your tires drift onto a rumble strip, what should you do? What is the minimum age for an unrestricted NJ driver license? How many passengers can a geo permit holder under 21 have in the car? Failure to stop for pedestrians in a crosswalk can result in what is a key step when changing lanes? What helps prevent highway hypnosis? What does an orange diamond-shaped sign typically warn of? If flashing lights are on at a railroad crossing, and the gate is not yet down, what should you do? How far ahead should you scan the road when driving in city traffic? What is the correct way to navigate a roundabout or traffic circle in NJ? What does a yellow pennant-shaped sign indicate? When driving behind a large truck, what is a good rule of thumb? What does it mean if your turn signal light blinks faster than usual? When must you use your headlights, aside from nighttime driving? What's the penalty for driving with no liability insurance in NJ? If your accelerator sticks while driving, what should you do first? What does a green light mean when turning left at an intersection? What should you do if your license plates are lost or stolen? How far must you stop from a school bus with flashing red lights? What does tailgating mean? What should you do before driving if you're angry or emotionally upset? What does a white rectangular sign usually indicate? What is the speed limit in a business or residential district unless otherwise posted? How can you recognize an uncontrolled intersection? If your vehicle has anti-lock brakes, ABS, how should you stop in an emergency? Driving under the influence of any drug that affects your ability to drive is. What is the penalty for refusing a chemical test under NJ's implied consent law? What should you do if your rear end starts to skid? When is passing prohibited?